Sosa.
Jim Sayers.
Luanne Hook.
Brant Murray.
Ann Leppanen.
Nelson serving as town manager.
Then what I'd like to do is take a moment to introduce Commissioner Jamie Harvey, who is seated here, the sole audience right now. And we've invited Commissioner Harvey because he is the person on San Juan County Commission who is focusing on the southern part of the county. And we really appreciate that you came to the meeting, and we look forward to working with you. Is there anything you'd like to ask any of us, or it sounds like you knew most of the council one way or another?
Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm not used to public speakers or loud voices, so I just appreciate the opportunity to be here. We had our commission meeting phase one, and I think part of my work is looking to talk about things in the county, able to become familiar with issues that are in the county. And what better way to know those issues than to be part of the process? So I look forward to the work and being able to listen and understand your issues. And I know we can work together to accomplish so much. So, but yeah, as far as introductions, my name is Jamie Harvey. I'm originally from Montezuma Creek, and I speak Denebizad and Navajo. My mother is Mary Lou Harvey. She used to work here at the senior center. Yeah, she's retired now, so she's still watching after me and getting after me with the things I do, so make sure I'm a good example as well. But it's now been 6 months in my new position, and I think my focus is on let's bring more services and programs down to the rest of San Juan County, down in this area, down in the reservation. I think today I presented an idea to involve the elected tribal officials through some grants, because we need to work together as county representatives, tribal elected leaders, and of course leaders such as you to keep information in front. Everybody's informed, and we're making decisions as an entire county. There's some things I know that are important for you to know. There's an energy corporation that's trying to look into rare earths and becoming a central hub, looking at energy fuels, and those are some of the discussions that are happening. It won't happen unless they're successful with submitting their proposal and accessing the first stage of that grant. But I think I talked to AES today, talking to them about a solar farm just up north on top of the hill. And they're excited about working with Sitla and the Bluff community and getting that done. So I think their efforts are geared towards let's inform everyone else that's in the area, and we'll take all those public comments and make a greater decision with more public involvement. And I like that idea. So from what I gather, this council is supportive of that project. So I don't want to be too long-winded, but it's just an honor to be here. Don't mind me. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an important person. I really am not. But I'm just here just wanting to learn more about your concerns and issues. And thank you for letting me be here, letting me listen in. And it's a pleasure meeting with each one of you, and look forward to working with you. So I'll leave my comments at that.
We'll look forward to working with you and having a long relationship with San Juan County. Thank you.
Everybody ready? I appreciate your time coming over and, yeah, that's great.
Should we move the microphone back?
I don't think they'll appreciate listening to me breathing too.
We're going to move into public comment. There will be a 3-minute time limit for each person wishing to comment. If you exceed the 3-minute time limit without the permission of the mayor, the meeting controller will mute you. Signal before the meeting. I believe that Erin had a sign up on the computer system telling folks if they want to sign up to do so, because we're doing random, we're doing it in a random order so that no one person gets preference. Were there any people signing up?
Did not have anyone indicate.
All right, then we can close off public comment and move to number 1, which is a summary of the Bluff Town Council meeting following the power outage. So I was not at that meeting. I had an excused absence last time, and my understanding is that the power went off at some point immediately into the first part of the meeting, and then it stayed off for a couple of hours. My understanding from reading the minutes and then talking to different council members is that the council, 3 of the council members were able to reconvene and complete the meeting. So the minutes that have been drafted by our recorder reflect that at 6:05, the electricity went down for 2 hours. For about 2 hours, Erin Nelson could not get back onto the meeting, and the recording ended at 6:12. Sayers, Murray, and Sosa were able to phone in and continued with the meeting. So if you listen to the audio on the Utah Public Notice website, you'll hear that it's a very short recording. But the minutes reflect what the recorder took down, and then if the 3 people who were on have anything to add to the minutes, this would be the time to do it before we move to approving minutes.
No. What time did the meeting adjourn? About 6:20?
6:12.
6:12. It was only like a 10-minute meeting or less than.
6:22, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was a little longer than that, 6:22.
Oh, you mean the
Yeah,
right, the meeting that the 3 of you had.
yeah.
Yeah, it's in the minutes, and I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't.
that's okay.
6:22.
So I lost connection at 6:09, and at 6:12, I tried a phone call and couldn't get in. So I just signed off. I assumed everybody lost connection. So I'll just abstain from those minutes.
So this is for the approval of the minutes of August 1st, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. Approve as presented.
Is there a second?
I can second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, I can't abstain. I'm abstaining, I was not at the meeting, sorry. 2
No problem.
abstentions?
Yeah, I'm abstaining because I was only at half of it, apparently.
Anyone opposed? All right, then there are 3 ayes. The minutes are approved. So then we'll move to number 2, a discussion and vote on the strategic plan for the town of Bluff. And vote, a second vote would be on extending Pathways contract for technical assistance for 9 months. And we had a work session today and went over the strategic plan as it currently is. That is the plan from Pathways. Is there any further discussion?
I have a comment. I was concerned about a part on page 9 of this document. The whole document was done really well, by the way. I appreciate the whole document, but On page 9, it talked about how we enforce the regulations that we have, and I had quite a bit of concern about that, but there's a sentence in there that says draft guidance to encourage, how you're going to get around this, and I think if we can take out the part that says before asking for enforcement action, not talking to your neighbor before that, but just leave that part out, that we're going to draft a process for figuring out problems or something to that effect. I would really appreciate that part being taken out, just so there's no misconception on our intent. The plan says we are going to make that plan, but it goes on to say that we're leaving it to neighbor, so if we could take that out, I would be real happy.
I can handle that.
Okay.
It looks like you might,
Mayor,
yes, Brant?
I'll make a motion to approve with that change.
Second.
Any further discussion?
And we've got, as far as the plan goes, we've got plans ahead to start working on different parts of it, so I think it's a good start to keeping us all heading in the same direction.
And thanks for offering the compromise.
Okay.
Then all in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then we have the vote I was trying to take in our work session, or in our public hearing. Discussion and vote on a master fee schedule for the town of Bluff.
Mayor,
Oh, did I skip something?
Pathways extension.
Oh, the vote on, I knew I would do that.
continuing
Thank you all.
pathways, I'm gonna make a motion that we do that too, for $2,000 and have that guidance for the next year.
Say that again, Brant.
I'm gonna make a motion that we hire Pathways to guide us through this next year, implementation of the plan.
And just so we're all clear, that would start in November 2023. Is that right, Erin?
That's correct.
And that's a 9-month contract,
Yes,
and the cost for that is?
$2,000.
$2,000.
I'll second Brant's motion.
Any further discussion? All right, then all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Then it's unanimous. Erin and I will let Pathways know that we have a plan and we have an approval on the contract. All right, now on the master fee schedule. Does anyone have any further changes that they'd like to have on this master fee schedule?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Any further discussion?
I would just say for the public's purposes, we did have a work session, and we also had a public hearing that we just finished. We've discussed this at a couple different times.
Thank you, Lou. Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Discussion of the Utah League of Cities and Towns Annual Conference. Who is going? I know that this was on the agenda last week, but I wanted to make sure that we all were aware of that conference and that we do have funds to be able to have several of us go. I have already signed up, and I'm not sure who else may have signed up.
I can't go, but I think it would be important, I mean, I don't know your schedule, but I think it would be important when our manager experiences that. They've been really helpful at the ones that I've gone to. I've never gone to a full-on conference, but all the meetings I've attended have been really good. I don't know what,
I would like the opportunity to go this year. I think I can fit it into my schedule.
it doesn't have a date here when it is.
6th through the 8th of September, so the week of Labor Day.
Yeah, and Erin and I have talked about it several times. I think it would be really beneficial for Erin to go because one of the components is the Association for County and City Managers, and it would be really good with the goal that we're keeping Erin forever, for her to start going to these and connecting with folks.
Yeah, I would appreciate that if you can.
It would be great to have the opportunity this year.
Erin should go. It's great. It's a great meeting and networking opportunity.
Thanks, Brant.
Do we need a vote to fund her?
Hold on a second. Linda?
I would also like to go.
And we have enough in the budget to be able to do that. Mine is covered else, otherwise, we would just be paying for 2, and mine is already covered.
And we would need a vote on that?
We would.
And we can do that now?
We can't.
I move to pay for the attendance of Linda Sosa and Erin Nelson.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. The next item, discussion and vote on termination of NetForce IT contract. Linda asked to have this put back on so that we would actually get a vote, because when I drafted the agenda a month ago, we didn't have vote. And I think we had talked about this would automatically terminate anyway, but I think people would feel more comfortable if we affirmatively voted to either continue or end. So people's thoughts on NetForce?
I vote to end. Or make a motion to end. Can't vote yet.
And we voted last week to end the contract at the end of the thing. Is that right?
Correct. The last day of the contract is November 1st.
And did Jim make a motion?
He did.
I'm seconding the motion.
Any further discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. And then Erin will begin working in her spare time on finding a new IT support.
I have already started exploring options.
All right, thank you. Then, number 6, update on planning and zoning, Lou?
Alrighty. So they met, that was, sorry, I don't have the date, the second?
Third, maybe?
Maybe it was the second. And they didn't have any land use clearances this time. They did have a partition request, and there's a piece of property on the south end of 5th West. So at the very end of the street there, and the partition request was to split it into 2 units. One is 0.75 acres and the other is 2.15, and it will go off the end of 4th, and they'll each have half of the street to access their property. So those were a lot of the questions, is access there. It kind of blossomed into a whole addressing issue, because some of the houses there are actually addressed on the alley. So that's one of the things that the town's working on, thanks to our manager, that she's changing up addresses, so that will need to be changed. But there was quite a bit of concern whether you could go through the alley. If it was an alley, it's labeled on the map that was submitted as 400 South, but 400 South isn't platted as a street, it's platted as an alley. So they worked through all of that, but and they did approve it. So there are 2 segments, then they were gonna survey it. So it wasn't a surveyed split, but they were.
I thought they had the survey. I thought I saw a final survey from
Oh,
the
did
county.
they?
The
Yeah.
survey was completed,
It
I
was
saw it
complete.
today.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it might have been today, but at the time, they were gonna, but they did approve the partition with that general idea in mind, with that size of lot and so on. And then there was a question about paperwork storage for planning and zoning things. They get some mail in, but they're not comfortable keeping it at their homes, and that's not proper anyway, so trying to figure out where that goes and who passes it to who. And they have everything stored electronically, so as Amanda quoting her said, they have a bomber system except this paperwork part. So they wanted to work through that. And then they are working on the RV ordinance still. And let's see, Erin was not there because of the change, and I advised him of that. Yeah, and they didn't come any further on the RV ordinance other than, and they asked if there was any update on the aviation ordinance, and I said, no update from me.
So on the addressing, we've got that on the agenda for today to cover that piece. And then there's something else that you said. Oh, the paperwork storage. I thought we'd resolved that, and I was,
I reached out to Amanda this week, and
Okay.
we're clean, we're good.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got a good
Yeah,
solution.
we'd kind of gone through that about a year ago where they couldn't store things, and so then Erin was working with them to clear it all out.
Okay, well, there was
Yeah.
some issue last week, but if that's taken care of, that's,
Yeah, and it could be because we have 2 new planning and zoning commissioners that people weren't sure what to do, but yeah, that's covered. They've had storage area in the secured file room for over a year, so,
And it'll come together.
yeah, we're okay. Great.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, number 7, update on the Cooperative Cultural Center Design Review Team, Jim.
There has been very little action on any front with the DRC. We sort of have a consent agenda going that doesn't change from week to week, and it sort of encompasses everything we have to do with CCC. The only action that we have taken for a committee that basically functions on consensus is that there has been a request for, I believe, 5 kennels on the south side of the property, of the CCC property along the south fence, I assume. And they would be temporary kennels that would be installed only for the period before and after the annular eclipse that we have on October 14th. So we have no objection to that, and we, if there's any further action by the council to take or anyone else, I assume the UDB board would be informed of this also, but we don't have the UDB representatives nor the town representatives have a problem with that. These are 4 by 5 foot enclosures, I believe, and I think there are going to be 5 of them. And these are for the kind of a good purpose. During the eclipse, we assume that there are going to be dogs and other animals maybe, but dogs mostly displaced or misplaced or find themselves wandering around town without any owners. So this will be to house those dogs that we anticipate will be here, lost or whatever. And I think it's a very good idea, and it's going to be easy. So anyway, we consented to that, and that's really all that. We've been updating on the grants, but there haven't been any updates. Really, it's more of an absence of updates technically. But we've got a couple of grant ideas out. We've got a bid out and some other things, but no action yet that we can really report or discuss. So that's really it. Are there any questions or other comments?
Did you get my email about the USDA grant?
There have been a lot of emails about the USDA grant. Is it forward motion now?
Right, we were approved
Oh,
for the grant. It's a $50,000 materials only USDA
Right.
grant for the fire suppression. I have to provide a couple more pieces of information. 2 of them, one is the acquisition and development agreement with Utah Deneba Kea. The second one is a statement from the fire marshal or whoever's in charge of that building saying that we do not need the sprinklers that would go between the ceiling and the roof because we're taking the ceiling down.
right.
And then the hard part is going to be getting a materials bid from Cooper and or 2 other bids. So I've got a materials only bid that I've got to work on, but we've been approved for the $50,000 if I can clear that out.
I must have read those. I did report on that, that was the status, that it's in the works, but there's some red tape involved and some other hoops we have to jump through essentially. And I have had a real brief discussion of that that particular hoop of having two other more bids briefly with the town manager. And I don't know to what purpose, what purpose would be served by two more bids, because regardless of how many bids we have on the overall fire suppression system, we are going to subsidize it by $50,000 for equipment. So it seems to me we're not going to be able to get a specific $50,000, for that particular USDA grant. We aren't going to be able to get a bid specifically for that. It would have to be for the whole system. So in a sense, the requirements are not entirely logical to me. I don't see how it's going to be completed, but and what difference it would make. It would really make it's immaterial. I mean, it's just it doesn't make any difference.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
But, so the woman running that section of USDA took over from Carl Larson. Carl is now the head of that division of USDA, and this was not a requirement at the time it was not a requirement that I was told at the time we applied for. Mary Navarro is the one running it now, and she has said if we only have one bid, but we've put it out and tried to elicit other bids, that's fine. They'll accept that because of our rural nature, but I still have to break out the materials piece, so I'm going to call Cooper and see what I can do with that.
Well, we haven't, technically we haven't really gotten a bid from Cooper. What we did was we got an estimate of cost. Once we put out bids and we accept, are we going to accept one then? And then we have to, and then we get the $50,000? Is that how that's going to work?
That's how it sounds like it's going to work. I was on vacation when I got the notice, so I haven't talked with her. But since it's for materials only, we somehow have to try to break it out, which is probably more the DRC's, the design review team's issue right now than necessarily mine, but I will continue to work on it. But I think maybe at the next DRC, Brant, you and I could trade places so that I can go to the DRC and see what help I might be able to get from Damian Bowerman.
Yeah, we can do that.
David Conine has a contact there too with those folks, so it'd be good to include him, I think. And the other thing, the playground's down, y'all.
Yeah. An alternative might be to have a discussion with Representative Curtis. He did say that this was kind of a no-brainer at one point in the discussion of the fire suppression system. And if we can cut some of that red tape, either in person, he's going to be here later, or through a letter to his office, I think he may be willing to just step in and cut through this a little bit, because this is really a logical gap, and we aren't going to be able to put it out for bid until we have at least what we feel is the full amount of the estimate, which we don't have yet. So there's kind of a catch-22 here. We don't have the money to pay yet for any bid that comes in, including Cooper's. So we've got a little bit of a...
Right, between that and being able to use the grant to do the demolition of the ceiling, it should be all one package, and because we're piecemealing it with different grants, we're in a quandary.
Correct, we're in a quandary.
Well, that's a good reminder that Congressman Curtis will be here the 29th for lunch. Get your lunch orders to me by the 22nd, and we will have him for a very short window of time. We're pre-ordering lunch, we'll be eating, talking, he'll be coming back here to meet with other people in the community center, other groups. I'm gonna guess we have 45 minutes, so everyone get your remarks concise. Lou?
Yeah, I just have a comment, mostly for the sake of our county commissioner that's in our audience, that we're the proud new owners of the old school, we call it, and it's got a new name of the Cooperative Cultural Center. So we've partnered up with Utah Dene Bakea, have the idea of having town hall there, mayor's office, that sort of thing, public use offices for like those services you mentioned. tutoring, there's all kinds of ideas, but they would have their share of what they're doing, we would have our share of what we're doing. And this holdup right now is this fire suppression. We need to have that installed and enough money to install it so that we can start occupying it. But I didn't know how aware you are of, that's one of our big projects, is trying to get that set up.
It's kind of interesting because when we were looking at buying it, that was clearly going to, a change of use and a change of ownership was going to generate that fire suppression, yet you could put however many children in a building that wasn't safe by standards now. So we're working on that. But yeah, Jim, maybe you and I can
Yeah.
talk later on before the next DRC.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then we have, Brant already alluded to it, the playground equipment is gone. Do either you, Erin, or Linda want to say anything about the playground?
I wasn't really involved in the project, so.
So I let Steve Helgerson in 2 weeks ago to start removing the equipment, and he was really fast. His quote was $2,000, which included removing the salvage that was created, which was really helpful. And so looks like he did a really good job.
I talked with him on Sunday as he was getting the last load, and my concern was that he needed to bring in Marks Powell's equipment and Marks, and I wanted to be sure that, given that the other quote we had was $12,000 to $18,000, I wanted to be sure that Steve had not underbid himself. He said it might be a couple of $100 higher when he gets done, but even if it's $2,200, that's a difference of $10,000 at the minimum. So I think we should be fine with that. We'll see what the bill looks like.
And it was removed for safety issues. It was kind of a historic, kind of sad to see it go, but it was the safety issues for the kids that would be on it now.
Yeah, impalement.
And again, the kids that were there played on it, and they were in there, but we are under new rules and decided that it needed to go.
All right, then we'll move to the discussion and vote on use of the Town of Bluff's audio-visual equipment and...
Number 8, go back.
What?
Number 8, tree trimming.
Oh, the tree trimming. Gosh. That's why I don't like to put them all on one line. I'm going to go back to putting them, so that we've got 20 items, but I don't skip them. Do we have Malia Collins online?
She's on.
Hey, Malia. Whoops, I didn't look at the screen. How are you?
Hello, hello. I'm good. Hello, everyone. How's it going?
Do you want to talk about the tree trimming?
Oh, yes. I have a beautiful slideshow that I've put together for everyone. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to share my screen.
Go ahead.
Awesome. Okay. Welcome to the Bluff Community Center tree trim quotes. I got 2 quotes from 2 different people, obviously, and I have totals for each of them for you today. But then I also have each tree and a beautiful photo of it broken down so that you know which tree it is that we are talking about. So the first thing is there is a transport fee, and then we also have a question of, do you want the materials to be removed, as in the debris, like the leftover trees, the leaves and the branches and the trunks? And also there are some other debris piles that could be picked or that could be removed, which we'll get to. There's a photo of them. Or do we want them to remain on site and available for community pickup? So that is one thing I want you to be pondering as we go through this wonderful presentation. So first item is the west entrance. So as you're pulling out of the community center, going west, and you look to your left, you will see these trees. So quote number 1 said that they would remove them and take them about 5 feet up for $150 to $200. Quote 2, about $200. So trimming all of the trees actually along that west fence, including the trees on the next to the community center itself. moving on. Oh, there's more photos. Look at that. Okay. And east entrance, we have our monster cottonwood that is right next to the baseball, softball. Great. Each quote was $700. That is going to be our most expensive tree to remove and not remove. I'm sorry, I take that back. To remove the dead limbs and stabilize because there is so much to remove. And we have some of the limbs that have actually rooted themselves into the ground in order to stabilize itself. So take a look around that one if you guys want to. It is a serious monster and beautiful. Moving along, any questions so far? Everybody with me? Okay, so next we have our pavilion trees. So we have 2 trees there that are in discussion. We have the locust. Do I have this? Okay, so we have the locust, this tree that is growing into under the pavilion. And there is, if we look at a side shot of it, we have some limbs growing over, some limbs growing under, and they said it's probably going to be best that we address this tree as soon as possible because of how much smaller the branches are right now, that we are going to just remove them and keep them from growing into the pavilion, destabilizing the roof there, and then the top limbs would actually be resting on the roof, which is also something we don't want for the future of our pavilion. So we have 2 quotes, $25, quote 1. He said this dead tree, that we should leave it alone. If it breaks down, it won't be falling on any structures, so it's not a big deal. Quote number 2 said they will trim the locust, the one growing into the pavilion, and they will remove the dead tree for $100. I do have more photos. Okay, so there's our locust growing into our pavilion. And another nice shot, side shot. You can see the tree growing down and then also above. East of the Bluff Community Center entrance, this is the tree that began this entire discussion. And so this is the tree in the far right photo. That tree is recommended to be trimmed and stabilized so that it is not going to pick up some water in a rainstorm and some wind come by and knock a branch onto the building, which would be very unfortunate. So, quote 1, trim and stabilize for $200 the cottonwood. Leave the locust as it is, which is our next photo on the left. Quote 2, $75 trim and stabilize the cottonwood and trim the locust. So, the elm on the north of the property. So this is a tree that I didn't even see until like a couple of weeks ago. It's a very nice tree, but it is kind of hidden by our building. And as you can see in this photo, its branches are basically almost touching the ground. And what is recommended by quote 2, they recommended that we trim the branches to where they are 5 feet off of the ground, remove the branches that are sitting on the roof for the same reason that the locust in the pavilion needs to be trimmed as well, because we don't want limbs laying on roof. I'm taking their word for that. Quote number 1 did not give us a quote for that one. Along our south fence. So this is also a forgotten part of the Bluff Community Center. It is that south fence that has lots of different trees, lots of debris piles, and quote 1 did not give us a quote for trimming or for removing any of those trees. Quote 2 said that they would trim all of the trees along that fence for $250, as well as this beautiful tree on your photo to the left. They would do the same thing, trim that lowest branch to about 5 feet, and that tree is going to be so nice for shade once it's trimmed up, and I think that that would be a great spot for picnic in the future. About these debris piles. So, quote number 2 has offered to take the debris piles that we already have. So the photos are kind of hard to see, but I'll tell you where they're at. So this first photo on your left is right next to the trailer and then behind the senior center dumpster. There is a pile of debris there that quote number 2 said, we are willing to pick that up and take that, or we can add our debris to that pile and you guys can do what you want with it. Our other debris pile is along the south fence, which is your photo to the right. There's just a couple of little piles there. He said that that is also something that he can take and help to clean our property up a little bit more. A third debris pile that I did not get a photo of, it is underneath of our monster cottonwood at our east entrance. So when you are getting that tour of the monster cottonwood, take a look at the ground and you'll see a really nice debris pile. Oh, wait. Oh, no, that's not it. That's another one of the, of the other one. Okay, so all of this to say, we have some totals. Quote number one, if they do everything that they gave us a quote for, it would be $1,225. Quote number two would be $1,300 if they leave the debris, and $1,500 to haul all of the debris off of site that they create, as well as what is already there. I did talk to each of them about not going through and doing all of the trees if you guys don't want us to do that. And we could do certain trees, specific trees, but we do still have that transport fee that we talked about at the very beginning, which is the $100 for quote one and $150 for quote two. Something that is different between those two, and the reason for the difference in price, quote one does not have a bucket truck. Quote two does have a bucket truck. And quote two does have a bigger trailer, so they would be hauling in less loads to get all of our debris off the site. This concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Anyone on the council have a question?
No, thank you, Malia. Sounds clear.
Malia, I do. On the pavilion trees, it looks like quote one is just let the tree grow into the pavilion and do nothing until it falls down. And the other quote two is to remove it. I would want to see it removed. I don't like the idea that we're going to wait till it falls down. You get a good wind, we don't know where it's going to go. Anybody else have any questions?
For some clarification on that one. So the tree that is recommended to remove is the dead tree. The locust, both quotes one and two recommended trimming the locust, but just quote two said we should remove the dead tree. Just to make sure we all understand each other.
Okay, thanks.
That sounds great.
Anybody?
And Brant raised his hand.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Good job, Malia. I think we should do the cottonwood tree and any trees that are near buildings, and have those trimmed and take the dead tree. And I also think the turnout from the community center tree needs to be trimmed because you can't see what's coming from the left. So those are the trees that I think we should hire. I do want to make sure that we provide the dead wood for winter heating. So we'd like to have those on site so people can pick that up. I'll stop right there.
For some clarification, Brant, when you say the cottonwood, are you speaking of the one at the east entrance or on the east of the community center?
And that's a bucket truck requires that really. And then I think any of them touching our buildings or the pavilion or any public safety, which I think that one pulling out of our parking lot where you guys go to work every day, it's hard to see to the left when you pull out.
So it sounds like, Brant, you want to kind of pick and choose which trees.
Well, if you want to do them all, that's fine. But I mean, I don't see a low limb by a fence being a problem that somebody couldn't take care of. I mean, you know what I mean? I think there's probably some, if we have other trees other than the ones I've just spoken about, they could probably be handled internally. I don't know. We want to hire the guy with the truck to get us up to get the tree work done. So down low is not the problem. Up high is.
We've had debris piles before. I mean, we have a big one under the monster tree, and people don't come and take the wood. I mean, a lot of it sticks. I mean, but there will be bigger pieces. I would say remove the debris because I just think it needs to go. And maybe the trimmer does something specific with it.
They always ask you, do you want to leave the wood or take the wood? And it's part of the factor of the price. So I think it's cheaper if they take the limbs down, cut the woods up so we can recycle them, for home heating. But it's whatever council wants to do. That's just my idea.
Question.
Jim?
Whatever option we choose, I would just like to remind a couple of things. One is heavy equipment on our septic system out there. We want to avoid that. And the other is if you're removing debris that's next to that mound, the south end of the lot, that is a cultural site, and so remove the debris without digging into anything would be best.
Well, I don't have the energy to go through and pick and choose, and my feeling would be we just pick quote 1 or quote 2, but if somebody would like to take until the next meeting to take a closer look and come up with a combination of what to do, we could table this until the next meeting.
Are you saying you want to just go ahead and do everything, Mayor? Which quote are you talking about?
Lou?
Yeah, so I kind of think, like Brant saying, just do them all while you have somebody here to do them.
Yeah.
I hate to lose any shade, so like that one by the pavilion, it's hard to take that one down because the shade right there is so nice, but if it's, movable in the wind, it's gonna tear that up. I don't know if it's the sort of thing that we could cut into the pavilion and let it grow for some years, but the others, I would hope that whoever does it knows where to cut them and stuff for trimming purposes and things, but I say that we ought to trim them up while somebody's available to get it done.
So I'm not really sure that I'm on the same track. So are you saying that there are some of these, is there one quote you could accept entirely over another quote? Or do you want to take the time in the next week or two to do a little better inspection with Malia and Brant and come up with a plan?
I think that they can figure it out. Who's ever trimming the trees will know what needs trimmed. And like that one at the pavilion, it probably needs to go. I just hate to see it go. But we can plan another one somewhere that's in a better spot. Just probably volunteer.
So does
Mayor?
Brant?
Yeah. What I really value shade, and that's why I'm trying to be selective about this tree trimming. But if you get the right person here, and we have a manager there with us, we can all have a good tree trimming day and get this thing done appropriately and get the debris we need. I don't think it's this complicated, really. When he gets here, he'll look at it, and I think we can do it.
Malia, did you have a preference between quote 1 and quote 2?
I prefer quote 2, just because of the bucket truck and the way that he was describing how he was going to be trimming the trees. I thought that that one sounded really nice. And just a quick clarification for you, Luanne, the shade tree by the pavilion is not going to be removed. It is just going to be trimmed. They're just going to trim around the pavilions to keep it from actually growing or to remove the branches that are sitting on the pavilion. And the only tree that will be removed would be that dead tree.
Yeah, and I think that probably needs to be taken out while you have somebody here to take it out. It just gets bigger and harder as the years go by, but that's, like I say, up to you guys. It's just my...
I'd be willing to make a motion that we hire vendor 2 to come in and do that with a not more than the quote he gave us. And if we can save some shade, we can do that day. I'll make that motion.
So you're making a motion for quote 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I think Lou made a really good point about the wind. The wind is not getting better. It's only getting worse, and this is a good thing.
Well, the tree is hopefully big enough that the wind isn't going to bother. I just don't know how many years before we're going to have to either cut the roof or take it down.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
I'm-
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. All right, moving to number 9, discussion and vote on the use of the Town of Bluff's audio-visual equipment and the request for the audio-visual operator to use for the public forum for Bluff Town Council candidates. Nelson, Erin, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so we received a request from Kristen Ewing to host the candidate forum for the election this year. So they're targeting Monday, August 14th at 7 p.m. So typically, I know we've had this discussion before regarding not letting outside entities utilize specific audiovisual equipment that was purchased for streaming. I would say this situation feels a little bit different because it is directly related to town council and the election process. They wanted, the organizers wanted to be able to stream and have outside participation, have a hybrid event, kind of like what we're doing today. And so the request would be to, with Craig's permission and scheduling, be able to utilize the audio-video equipment as well as the operator, Craig. I would tentatively say from 6 p.m. to probably 9 p.m. on Monday, August 14th to host that meeting. And so the request would be to approve that exception given the circumstances and the relation to the town of Bluff specifically.
I would be willing to make a motion to approve this on the condition that the ground rules for the forum are passed to the council. I think these forums usually have ground rules, and I'd like to see what they are, but as long as they, it's good, then yes. I would like
I'll
to-
second that.
So let me comment on that. I believe that Josh Ewing will be the narrator for this. The meeting is, if we hold it, it is next Monday. Erin and I have been working with Lyman Duncan, trying to figure out if we want to confirm that we are not going to need a primary because we're now down to 4 candidates. And it may be then that the candidates themselves want to push this out further into the fall. So that would give you an opportunity to look at the rules that they may be laying out, Jim. But if we approve it tonight, you'd have to work with Josh and Kirsten Ewing to look at the rules before Monday because we don't have another meeting scheduled.
And I will say I spoke with Kirsten today and explained the situation with the primary, and she still felt comfortable. They were still expressing interest to host it on Monday.
That's who is applying for this, is Josh and Kristen? Or who?
No, for the,
To host the
to
forum.
host it, they're going
Yeah.
to, he's going to be the moderator.
Okay, I missed that. I'm comfortable with that. I withdraw the part of the motion about the ground rule,
So do I.
but a motion to approve.
Any further discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. All right. Number 10, because we have the disconnect hearing next Tuesday in lieu of our meeting, I would like everyone to consider moving that 15th, voting to cancel the 15th and moving it to the 22nd of August. And I know we've had a lot of meetings this month. It's only going to get worse next
So
month.
moved.
That's your motion? Okay,
Second.
all right. Any discussion? So we'll move.
Don't
the-
apologize for meetings, Mayor. We got to do it. It's okay.
All right, so we're going to cancel the 15th hour meeting, but the public hearing will take place on disconnect, and we will have a meeting on August 22nd, which Linda and I will notice. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Number 11, the financial report and status of our audit by Larson and Company. Linda.
I sent out the financial report for July, and when you look at it, you'll see that parts of it are rounded. Dave, our accountant, did that as a placeholder. So the parts that were rounded were money we hadn't received yet, but we're going to. So it was sales tax, resort tax, it even had the road funds. And so they're rounded in their parentheses, and the actual amounts are recorded correctly in our accounting package. And these reports are, the bottom, you'll notice it says these are for management. And so I don't know if there's any questions about that. The audit is going full steam. Ann and I are definitely getting questions, and we've done the random check piece, we're working on the procedural matrix, we are finishing the analytical piece, and we'll probably have a few more things coming up. It's really a 2 or 3 week process, but it seems it's going well. We're able to get them what they need.
And we have a different team than we've had in the other years. We've got a new lead and 2 newer auditors. I had a little bit of trouble with getting an exact answer to a couple of things, but that seems to have worked out with the new auditors that are on board, giving a more thorough answer. And Dave Sanderson, our accountant, kicked right in there and did a lot of it before we were brought in. So a lot of the accounting pieces had already been covered by Dave with Polaris and Larson and Company. Any questions?
No, I want to compliment our finance people, including you and the mayor and Erin and all our finance folks for an incredible job. I'm looking forward to this audit being a good one.
Well, I'm glad you're looking forward to it, Brant. These always make me nervous and anxious. So thank you for being forward focused. All right, then if there's nothing else, then update on the addressing for the town of Bluff. Erin.
Yeah, so as you all probably recall, last fall, we had some discussions regarding addresses for residents and businesses. And so I worked very closely with the state to ensure that we had a grid system, which would make logical sense, and then we can apply some maps as overlays. So essentially, if you give us any point on the map, we can say this would be the address that would be most applicable. Now, a lot of that was incredibly useful. We had some new buildings, and so anytime a new building was able to come, we could take that responsibility and ensure that they have an address that aligns to our grid system. Now kind of comes the very difficult part, and I've talked to a couple individuals who have self-identified that they weren't sure if they had an accurate address. Now some of this is just due to some oddities that took place at the county prior to us coming over, and some of it would be different now that we've got a grid system that is specific to Bluff. But now comes kind of the difficult part of saying, all right, here's an existing structure. It has an assigned address, but it doesn't align to our grid system. And in many cases, it's far off from our grid system, where if an emergency call was placed and they tried to describe their address, it wouldn't align to what emergency services are able to see up in Price. We're very fortunate, many of our emergency responders know our area, but in the grand scheme of things, it's incredibly important that we make sure that all addresses align to this logical system. So I felt very comfortable putting together the system, to make sure everything aligned for these new addresses. And now that that piece is finished, I think we're on to the point where we will, the town, probably myself, we'll need to construct letters to reach out to individuals where we have identified that their addresses are incorrect. Now, people, again, can self-identify if they have questions about their address, if they're wondering if it aligns to our grid system. We've got an address application. You can find it under Ordinances and Applications, under the Forms and Applications tab. It is the first form that comes up. It has some pretty specific instructions. You fill out a few things, and then you send it to manager@townofbluff.org, or you send it via mail, and I can verify your address. I fully expect, if we continue to put the word out, we'll have a few more individuals self-identify, but I will also be honest, and we've had this conversation, and I've told you, changing your address is not an easy process. There are a lot of people to contact, so I would imagine many residents are not jumping at the bit to get their addresses changed. I would like to say, to the public that we recognize it is difficult, but it's really important that we ensure that you align to our system. So probably in the coming months, clearly, as any excuse, we've had a lot going on the last few months. So this has fallen kind of by the wayside, but I will be developing a process to say, maybe it's mailers, maybe it's, the emails. I think we've tried emails before, but putting together a comprehensive process, attaching that form so folks can verify their address and make sure it aligns. Now, for those who may need to change their address, this is definitely something that has happened. I talked to other individuals in Sevier County who had, I think they had 40 or 50% of their addresses incorrect, which seems really overwhelming, but they made it through. Everyone survived, and they gave me some tips. And so I just work with each individual owner to ensure that they understand the process and they understand they'll get all the documentation, formal documentation from us. So it is certainly a process. Again, you can go to Ordinances and Applications, the Forms and Applications tab, and fill out that address application form. You just say, I already have an existing address, I want to verify it. But this is quite a large undertaking, but we just want to ensure the health and safety of the public. So probably more formal things to come, but just kind of as a general PSA, if you've got questions, give me a call, send me an email, and we'll make sure that you're in the right spot. So
I would like, go ahead, Brant.
No, I was just going to say, if we could assemble a list of kind of who we need to contact, generally power company, and just kind of give that best advice to our citizens about these are the people that definitely, it would be great. Thank you for the hard work on this, Erin.
thanks, Brant. And you bring up a really good point. So there are a lot of entities and, between utilities, even like internet services and things like that, and with the county. So once we have the correct address in the system, a lot of that, it's really nice, a lot of it does trickle down. And so if I update it with this one particular state application, then it'll get the trickle down. I also update the county. So there are definitely touch points that we will help handle for the landowner. But you're absolutely right. There are going to be some checks that the landowner would, the property owner would need to go through to ensure that they've changed their physical address. I also know it's odd. We've got the P.O. box, mailing address versus physical address, but we explain all of that in the paperwork that the landowner receives.
So I just want to tag team a little bit with what Erin said and stress. We had to change our address. We were between 6th and 7th. We were 592. That's an issue. Why is it an issue? When the cemetery fire happened and we had to bring in outside responders, there was total confusion on the dispatch in other areas as to what the addresses were that were being affected. When we took over addressing, you need to remember that San Juan County just basically said, you're going to start addressing. We didn't have any forewarning that we were getting this. And so we got it. The good news is that we're going to be on top of the game, whereas the rest of San Juan County, if they haven't followed the grid system, which they hadn't traditionally done, about 60% of those homes and businesses do not have accurate addressing for 911 services. So yes, it's a pain to change your driver's license, your voter registration, your utilities. But it is so important that you cooperate and identify and help us do this for you, so that you get those emergency services if you have to call 911. And it helps with your UPS
I was
delivery
going to
too.
throw that in. It'll
so-
help with your Amazon packages. No, I
It
still
makes
appreciate
for an
that.
orderly town. It's just the right thing to do, and we got to do it. So
Yep,
it's just one.
exactly. And thanks, Erin, it's a lot of work and you're doing a great job. So let's hear how we're doing on the Bluff Community Center remodel bidding.
Well, I haven't received any official bids yet. Again, this is not a sealed bid process. We need to put it out to bid. And so that packet can be found on our town website, on our homepage. As described earlier, we've reduced the scope of the project. We're not knocking out any walls, any windows. It's really just a nice remodel of the area to ensure that it's ADA compliant, which is incredibly important for this to be utilized by the entire community, as well as giving it a little bit of a facelift in the offices, the bathrooms. So we're talking carpets and painting and ensuring that the baseboards are nice. So significantly reduced scope of work. However, it's still really important to us that we have a qualified bidder, so folks can certainly go out to our website, they can call the town office, they can email me directly, but it is on our town website. It's also posted around town. Now, there is a packet. There are specific questions that we need bidders to answer, including, of course, the full quotation, and that's why it's so important to use the packet provided. And if anyone has any issues accessing that, they can reach out to any of the council members or myself, council members who will reach out to me. Bidding closes Friday, August 18th at 10 a.m. And certainly at this point, at this juncture, if you know anyone who would be interested, council members, if you know anyone who's interested, we can't provide, specific, all the information is included in the packet, so you didn't hand them the packet and go from there.
It's important to note that part of this is the requirement of the ARPA funds to have a food pantry in the building. So that's the use of our ARPA funds. So that's really a big focus in addition to the remodel, is getting that space up and running. Public hearing reminder, the Acton petition to disconnect is August 15th, which is next Tuesday at 6:00 p.m. I expect that we will have a fairly heavy turnout, and therefore we have canceled our meeting so that we can focus solely on the petition to disconnect. It involves the Actons, a section by the BLM, owned by the BLM, major Sitla property, and St. Christopher's Mission. St. Christopher's Mission, through the Navajo land, has written a very strong letter that they do not wish to disconnect from the town of Bluff. And so we will not be spending a great deal of time on the Mission property, other than to note where it is, and that the petitioner's attorney is being informed that they are not asking to disconnect from our town due to the historical importance of the mission and the church.
And as a reminder, this will be held in person and virtually, so a complete hybrid event. However, you can join at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. You should join 6 p.m. Tuesday.
Anybody have another other?
I guess I would like to just update on our active transportation project. We have the draft in that the committee is reviewing. They've done the whole draft plan. It's an amazing work of art. It was a lot of work. Takes a few hours just to read it, so you know when it takes that long to read something, it took a long time to write it. But we are still working in-house in the committee to look at that, but it will be available before long.
Thanks, Lou. I know it's a pretty long one.
51 pages.
And then, did you want to provide any additional updates on the primary election, or do you want to save that for next, well, I guess we're not having a meeting next week, so.
Well, so, just somebody shoot me on this one. So we have a primary that's scheduled. We had 5 candidates, so we have to hold a primary. We now have 4 candidates. One candidate has filed the affidavit today. Yesterday, to withdraw. We are waiting to hear from Lyman Duncan in the Elections Division of San Juan County. to confirm that we do not hold a primary. Now, I'm going to caution everybody, when this happened a year and a half ago, what happened was the ballots went out because the ballots have been printed. People voted. Those votes, if we don't hold a primary, even if you fill out your ballot and mail it back, you're not voting on anything. What will determine it is if we actually hold a primary. And as soon as we know, we will get that out. If we're holding a primary, it'll be still mail ballot, mail-out ballots, and on September 5th, the ballot box, there'll be in-person voting here in the auditorium gym. So stay tuned, but right now, it's Erin's and my,
It looks pretty solid that we would not hold a primary election. I was able to contact the elections office, but it's the same. We still need to have the county. I mean, the county is the one running our election. It's incredibly important that we're able to reach them. But the state indicated, given the situation, we're down to 4 candidates. Those 4 candidates just move on. Again, it's a very time-sensitive issue, but I did want to kind of get it out to
Thank
the
you.
public. We will, once we have something official, it'll go on the website. You should receive an email. The state also indicated that it would be in common practice if you are a registered voter with an email address that was registered, that you would receive an email from the county's office regarding the cancellation. So you will be notified, but I think it's important that you understand that we are working through this right now, given the time sensitivity, and we won't have another formal meeting until the 22nd.
And then, just for clarification, all those that we still have 4 candidates.
We do.
And so in
Correct.
November, they
Yes.
will all come out again with another ballot, and that will be when your vote counts, and that will be the election. But it's towards the end of November, so,
November 21st.
but it'll be
yeah.
mail-in again and with an option to come in person, so.
Certainly.
so there are a few details that Erin and I need to work out with San Juan County, but we're working on it. So that was.
And I'm sorry to add that to your other,
no.
but the timeliness of,
That-
we had a lot of developments in the last 24 hours.
I
so.
assume that was the Lieutenant Governor's office that you spoke with.
Shelley, I spoke with
Okay.
Shelley.
All right, so we have 4 candidates. Wesley Shook, Gary Lichtenstein, Jen Davila, and Britt Hornsby. So hopefully we're correct, there's no primary, and with that, I believe we have completed everything. It is 7:16 PM.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I'm turning off the recorder,
Thank you.
and we're logging off.